Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over the likely development of a La Nina during the fall and winter months. We're going to be discussing what that means for the United States in terms of snow, colder air, and also where we'll be dealing with more and less precipitation. We're going to be going over all of that and more in today's video, and then for the next couple of videos we're going to be discussing in tomorrow's video mostly the model guidance on the La Nina, what models are showing the La Nina developing, and then what the models are showing could happen in the United States as a result of that La Nina. So that is what we're going to be talking about for tomorrow. For today, we're mostly going to be speaking about what a La Nina is, what it usually means, and looking at some of the ENSO guidance on what is currently expected from that La Nina. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say that we are having a upload schedule change. My school recently just started, so I'm not going to be able to do the morning uploads, which I was doing during the summer. Now they're going to be in the afternoon and evening. So that's generally when I should be posting for whichever your time zone is. So for Eastern time, 4 to 6 p.m. For example, right now it's 4:24 p.m. Eastern time as of when I'm recording this. So by the time I upload this, I'm assuming it's probably going to be out around 5 p.m. Eastern time. So if you were looking today and you didn't see a video, it's going to be like that for the next couple of months, all the way until winter break, where I'll probably do the morning videos again, and then eventually I'll go back to the afternoon uploads again. So for the next, I would say 9 months or so, it's probably going to be in the afternoon. Again, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Generally, of course, some days it'll be earlier, some days it'll be later. 3 to 5 Central time, 2 to 4 Mountain time, 1 to 3 Pacific time. And then that's only going to be really from Monday through Friday. Weekends, holidays, I'll probably have similar schedule during the morning as to what I was doing in the summer. So it would be an upload probably around 10, 11, 12 o'clock Eastern time. So let's start off by talking about what a La Nina actually is and how it develops. This is just a graph that NOAA put out on what happens during a La Nina, because you always hear that term kind of just thrown out, and a lot of people don't even know why that develops or what it is in general. So what happens is that usually you have warmer waters developing along the Atlantic area, and that can also happen out through the Western Pacific, and then also near the Mediterranean and back through the Eastern Atlantic. So that's where we usually see some warmer temperatures develop during that time frame. And what happens is that during areas where you have warmer temperatures, warm air likes to rise more than cold air, which sinks more. So you're dealing with that warmer air rising up and then eventually kind of moving through the trade winds to the west, which is normally how in the northern hemisphere the winds go. So you're seeing all that warm air push in to the west into a colder environment, which you see over for the areas in the Eastern Pacific, and then eventually that warmer air turns into rain, and that ends up causing precipitation throughout that area that can help cool down this entire region. So that area is where we usually see cooler temperatures during a La Nina. And then of course the next questions that we're going to want to answer is going to be, what does that actually mean for Canada and the United States, which I'm sure that's what most of you guys clicked on this video to kind of understand and learn about. Taking a look at the current sea surface temperature anomalies, you can see those colder temperatures mainly just for that eastern and central Pacific region off of the South American coastline. This may look very familiar to those of you who are a little bit more into the weather sphere, because this is what we've seen for many past La Ninas, and this is a fairly close match to what we would normally see in a La Nina, where you have these cooler temperatures off the South American coastline that extends pretty much halfway through the Pacific, and then the rest of the Pacific ends up being a little bit warmer. Now, something else that we want to pay attention to is that we have warmer temperatures out into the northern Pacific. So that could indicate some high pressure rising, which would mean, depending on how far east this is, potentially some dips in the jet stream over the central or eastern United States. The model guidance has significantly shifted colder in terms of this, where now the eastern half or 2/3 of the country is looking at a fairly good shot of seeing colder temperatures, and we're going to talk about that more in tomorrow's video. And depending on how long these couple videos end up being, I may actually extend that and make a part 3 of this if we get new information and all that. So again, I'm using all the new updated info. All of this info came out either yesterday or today because they make the new ENSO forecast on the second Thursday of every month. So today would be that second Thursday of the month, so therefore that's when they issued the ENSO guidance, and that's when I'm presenting it to you guys right now. If we look at this image right here, this is a animation of the sea surface temperatures over the past, I would say, looking at 4 to 6 weeks over this area. Notice right here how you're dealing with a steady kind of leftward trend or westward trend with those colder temperatures. What we're dealing with is a little pattern of precipitation and cooler temperatures shifting over to the west, and then you're dealing with that filling in with some warmer temperatures, and then eventually you're going to see that cycle continue again. So you see those colder temperatures, eventually they kind of die out as you get to the central Pacific, and then you're going to see that kind of resurge up on the eastern end of that, closer to the Galapagos Islands. So that's how these La Niñas develop, and it's interesting to look at maps like this because usually you just see the static image and you just see the area where you have kind of little nods in the La Nina pattern, and it does have a signature look to it, but you don't get to see it in kind of full animation like this. So I think it's interesting to look at least because it does kind of show you how these how this area of cooler water does not stay stagnant like you may think just looking at these static images. It does move to the west. It's just getting kind of rejuvenated by the cooler temperatures to its south. If we look at where this La Nina is currently at, you can see it's just at La Nina threshold. So technically we're still in an ENSO neutral. Those gray lines, which you see kind of scattered all over the place behind the purple and blue line, that's the La Nina, the first year La Ninas for every year since 1950. So right now we're going into a first year La Nina. I believe last year we were in an ENSO neutral, or we might have actually been right borderline with a La Nina, but I believe it was technically classified an ENSO neutral. So we're now going into technically a first year La Nina. We're seeing similar conditions to what we're expecting from what we saw last year. But just because it's maybe 0.2 of a degree Celsius cooler, now it's technically a La Nina. Again, these are all technical terms, and it's not really that important to see the exact threshold, whether it's maybe a very cooler ENSO neutral or maybe a bit of a warmer La Nina. It's not going to have too big of a difference on which one it ends up being classified as. If it's minus 0.4 degrees or minus 0.6 degrees, that's not going to have too much of an impact. But you can see that most of these follow a similar pattern. They start up near September and November of last year or the year before, and they kind of stay up near that ENSO neutral time frame. Then you go into some of the fall months, you get a big dip, and then you go back up into maybe even closer to ENSO neutral or El Nino, and then you see that dip back for most of them. There are some outliers which have some years where we went back into an El Nino, but that is not likely at all. So this is generally how these type of weather patterns do set up, and this is normally how you're going to see them set up in the future. If you look at the sea surface temperature anomalies for different regions of the ENSO, now the Nino 3.4 is what most people like to look at. It's the one that usually is looked at by most meteorologists or climate forecasters because it kind of encompasses the entire area between Nino 3 and Nino 4. But even if you're looking at any of these, are all right now negative, whether that be ENSO neutral or in some cases like you're seeing with the Nino 4 index and almost with the Nino 3.4 getting closer to that La Nina threshold. So just to give you kind of reference, Nino 1.2 is further to the west, Nino 4 is furthest to the east. So that's how you can kind of visualize that in your head. So you can see that we were actually a little bit positive with the Nino 1.2, 1+2. but then you go further to the west and you get closer, further to the east, and you get into some of those colder and cooler sea surface temperatures. If you look at the upper ocean heat anomalies, you can see that for a period of time between about March and July, we were a little bit above normal. It was very minor, so you were looking at ENSO neutral at best. Maybe it peaked out at a very, very weak El Nino, but we were at a time technically above normal. But like most first-year La Ninas, you see that kind of rise up a little bit towards the summer, and then right back around the fall and winter times, it's going to dip back down. And usually that starts to happen in July, but takes full effect in August and September. If you look at the subsurface temperature anomalies, now you're going down a few hundred feet, and you're looking at, especially over that eastern and central part of the ENSO region, you're dealing with some of those colder temperatures, which is a good sign if you do want a La Nina, and if you like colder, colder or snowier conditions over the eastern United States, then this would definitely be the pattern for you. If you don't want some of those snowier conditions, then you're probably going to want more of a El Nino type of event. Usually these bring drier conditions for the southeast and the southern plains, so of course that does cause some complications, and it's usually a lot more active and a lot wetter in the parts of the northwest. So that's just kind of a brief summation of what a La Nina is. If you want to look at the map of this, you can see that we have normally, and this is put out by NOAA, we normally have, and they're looking at, this looks more like a moderate La Nina to me. A weaker La Nina is going to mean that you're probably dealing with this colder air being a little bit further to the east. So if I had to put this colder air somewhere, I would put it right here. I would not have it extended that far to the west, just because of what we've seen from most weak La Ninas. And we're going to show you the chart of what previous moderate and weak La Ninas looked like. The jet stream, of course, would be further to the east than what you're seeing here, most likely, if we were looking at a weak La Nina. And then we would have still wetter conditions in the northwest, still more active in the Great Lakes and the northeast. And again, jet stream will have a ton to deal with that, and to kind of depend on that jet stream will have a lot to do with where exactly the rain snow line starts to set up. Warmer conditions over the southeast, the southern plains, and sometimes into the southwest. And the most certain thing about this forecast is that you're probably going to have drier conditions in the southeast, the southern plains, and into the southwest as well. If we look at the precipitation patterns from La Nina, and we're looking at the entire globe right now, and then here's North America right here, you can see that we are expecting some little pockets here and there in the United States to have some wetter conditions during a typical La Nina. So mostly from December through March in the northwest, and also December through March in the Ohio Valley, so pretty much the entire winter time frame. And then it gets a little bit drier between October and April, so almost 2/3 of the year pretty much, or I would say closer, 2/3 of the year, where you're dealing with some drier conditions in the southeast, the southern plains, and into the southwest. So that southern tier of the U.S. usually dealing with drier conditions by that point. And again, that is mostly to do with the lack of a subtropical jet stream, which normally would be kind of just drifting along the south. But in this case, it would be it would not be active, and we would not be dealing with too much rainfall being produced from that. If we look at the ENSO forecast for this La Nina, just to kind of give you a little bit more evidence that we're probably going into a La Nina, you can see that at the bottom where you have kind of those red bars, that's the indication of an El Nino. So between September, which would be SON, which is September, October, November, and all the way to, I would say, FMA, which is February, March, April, which is pretty much your winter time frame. So I would say this is your winter time frame, fall and winter. This is what you want to look at. You can see that red bar, which indicates El Nino, very, very, very low down. So we're not expecting that. But if you look at the neutral bar, you can see that that dips down all the way to, I would say, 20% or 30% as we're getting into the meat and potatoes of winter. So November, December, January, February, those two areas is where it bottoms out at about 20, 25%. And that's also where the La Nina goes to its highest point, where during that October, November, December, January, February timeframe, it's already up at 75 or 80% chance of seeing a La Nina. So throughout the entire winter, it's looking like until maybe I would say March or April, we're going to be in a solid La Nina. And then you could maybe say that a neutral might take over again into the spring and summer months, but if we're looking at the fall and winter, it looks fairly certain that we're going into a La Nina. If we look at just an example of a La Nina or a weak or an Enso neutral, so an Enso neutral into a weak La Nina, it was a very borderline year last year. This is the last year's snowfall total. So just to kind of give you an example of what can happen when you have that jet stream set up a little bit further to the south, which we saw particularly in the later half of winter where it really ramped up for these areas. You can see how snowy it was for a lot of areas, but what you're not going to see on this map is the anomalies. And if we looked at the anomalies, you would see that this area was below normal, but you looked at the rest of the Great Lakes and the Northeast, for the most part, you were above normal, especially as you got further to the south. You're looking at some of these areas further inland. You're not dealing with as much snowfall as you would typically see in a normal winter month. You can, of course, see that further to the south, we had that big snowstorm, and that caused some of those numbers to go up a little bit. But again, this is just an example of what we normally see in an Enso neutral, and just to kind of give you a review of what we saw last winter. If we look at the temperature anomalies in a normal La Nina, and I actually like this graph a lot more than the other ones that they show. So I'm gonna put the ones that I highlight in yellow right here are gonna be the ones that are for a moderate La Nina. So that's gonna be for these ones right here, and then the ones that are in pink would be the ones that are in a weak La Nina. So all of these down here are weak La Ninas. The yellow ones were in moderate La Ninas. So you want to pay attention mostly to these ones in the pink, where you're going to be dealing with a weak La Nina, and this is just an example of how much below normal those temperatures normally got. And again, mainly on this bottom part of the screen right here, you can see the year number on the top right of each picture, and you can see that for most of these in weak La Ninas, there of course are some outlier months or outlier years. For example, 05, 06. 2011, 2012, 1974, 75. So there were a few outliers, but for the vast majority of these, even in some of these outliers, you're dealing with colder temperatures almost certainly for the northern plains. So you're dealing with a very high likelihood that the northern plains will be below normal during a weak La Nina. So I would say in close to 80 or 85% of La Ninas, you're going to have colder temperatures into the northern plains. And again, you want to focus mostly on the bottom half of the screen where the weak La Ninas are. And then if we look at for, let's say, the eastern United States, you can see that 83, 84, you were below normal. We're looking at, which one is that? That would be 64, 65. 2000, 2001, 1971, 72, a little bit warmer, but 08, 09, you're warmer, you're colder in that area. 2011, 2012, it was warmer pretty much in the entire United States. 54, 55, and then 95, 96, also colder for that entire area. So we're looking at, I would say, 60 or 70% of La Ninas, weak La Ninas, being below normal, very marginally, but still below normal as a whole for the eastern half of the United States. And if we look at most of these, you're going to see a little bit of a trend where parts of the southeast are in some of the warmer temperatures, and sometimes that does extend into the southwest, which is a little bit more of a wild card in terms of whether they will actually be a little bit warmer than normal. Sometimes they're a little bit colder, sometimes they're a little bit warmer. It's nothing set in stone, but you are looking at a vast majority of the chances being that you are going to be below normal if you live in the northern plains or into the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. That whole area looks like it has a fairly good shot of being below normal. just again to remind you guys, the upload schedule change, and I'm just saying it in this video and the next couple, just in case some people only click on a couple of the videos per week. I know some people like to mainly click on the winter videos because they're more excited about winter than, like, let's say hurricane season. So some people pick and choose which videos they click on. So I'm just going to put them in for, I would say, the next 3 or 4 or 5 videos, just so that I can get the message across, because I don't want some people not seeing the videos because they don't know what time they're usually coming out. So again, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, mostly just because of school. If there is any change in the schedule, I'll tell you guys. But again, today's video, this one is coming out around 5 or 5:15 p.m. Eastern time, most likely. Holidays, weekends, will probably have the regular morning upload times, but again, because of school, I'm not going to be able to make a morning video. So 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 to 5 p.m. Central time, 2 to 4 p.m. Mountain time, 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. Of course, you can always watch them in the morning time the next day if you want to, but just so that you guys know, again, because of school, won't be able to upload them during that time, and I probably also won't be responding to too many comments during the daytime. So probably in the afternoon is when most of your comments will be answered. Again, so that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the same topic, but we're going to look at more of the model guidance forecasts, and depending on how long that video goes, if that next one is going to take another 20, 25, 30 minutes, then I'll probably split it into another 3-part series on this. So we have a lot of information, a lot of interesting information, so I hope you guys stick around. Make sure you have your notifications turned on so you never miss another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.